It's Mad Dog Unleashed on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Here's your host, Christopher Mad Dog Russo.
Well, it's not often that I get nervous doing this. It has been 35 years of doing talk radio, but I must admit I'm a little nervous right now. Can you imagine that? Because how many chances do you get an opportunity to chat with one of the great athletes in the 20th century and one of the best golfer of all time? And he says hello. He's Jack Nicklaus, who joins us here on this Thursday. Jack, nice to talk. Christopher Russo, how are you today, okay?
I'm good, Chris. How you doing?
I'm doing. Your Indians have a big ball. You're still a big Indians fan, aren't you, Jack?
Well, I don't follow a lot of baseball anymore, but if I had to follow baseball, I suppose the Indians would be there, and or the Marlins. I was a Marlin ticket holder for a lot of years, and but they're not exactly playing right now.
No, they're not Marlins. They're not. Didn't your dad take you to your first ever Indians game, Jack, way back? Isn't that the way you got introduced to baseball?
It's kind of interesting. The first baseball game I went to was in Yankee Stadium. It was the Indians and the Yankees. Bob Feller pitched that night, and he was relieved by Satchel Paige.
Wow.
And DiMaggio hit a grand slam home run. I think there were 52,000 people or something like that. And I remember going to the game, and I did a golf. Golf Channel did a special on me a couple of weeks ago, and Izzy Harara we were talking about baseball. He was the guy who was producing the show, and Izzy told me about. Asked me about baseball and how I played a lot of baseball when I was younger, but and I was 8 years old. I went to this game, 1948, and I told him about the story. Well, anyway, Izzy comes back about 2 weeks later, and he's got a shadow box with a baseball with Feller and Satchel Paige's signature on it. He's got the program from the game. He's got tickets from the game. He's got the newspaper article from the game. And I'm sitting there and says, you got to be kidding. It's one of the neatest things I've ever been given.
Wow, how about that? 1940. Now, I know your dad was a big sports fan. You were a good athlete.
Yep.
Did you play all the sports, Jack, in Ohio growing up in the 50s?
Yeah, I played baseball. I was a switch hitter. I played catcher, and then I played football. I was a quarterback and played basketball, which, of course, I was recruited at Ohio State for basketball, and they felt like I was probably too short and slow, and I think that was probably correct. And I ended up with golf, and so that's okay.
But think about it for a second, Jack. If you did go play for Ohio State, you had a chance to play for some great teams in 1960 and 61.
I was recruited with Lucas and Havlicek, and I got to know those guys. I still see them both quite often, actually, and they had some great teams. Well, they won the NCAA, and I guess what was it, 61, and they were runner-ups in 62 and 3.
Yeah, they had great that grade 3 period there, and obviously Hondo got a recruitment with the Browns before he goes to the Celtics. When what were you, about 15? When did people? I know you had that coach there, and I saw the 3-part series on the Golf Channel right after the Masters, which was great. When did people around you and yourself begin to see this out-of-the-world golf ability? Do you remember the moment where you're 14, 13, 16, where somebody said, you know what, Jack, let's do this, and we have a chance to be, a very successful PGA Tour player? Was there a moment that you recall in that situation?
Nobody ever did that, Chris, back in those days. I mean, I've played all the other sports, and golf was just my seasonal sport. And finally, the first one I gave up was probably football because I started to enter up into golf season. The junior season and the National Amateur carried into football season, and so I ended up giving up football. And then baseball and golf were conflicting, so I gave up baseball. And I played basketball and golf because it's obviously winter and summer. And I didn't really worry too much about that. And I went off to Ohio State. I was recruited a lot of places for golf, but I said, look, don't bother, guys. I said, I'm going to Ohio State. And I said, I'm going there because I've been a Buckeye all my life. I'm going to continue to be a Buckeye. And, I played, intramural sports and all that kind of stuff all through college. And finally I won the National Amateur. I was about 19 years old.
Right.
I was 19 years old. And it's the first time I really thought much about I made the Walker Cup team. I said, I must be one of the 12 best amateurs to make the Walker Cup team. And then at the end of that year, that was 1959, and at the end of that year, I won the National Amateur. I was ranked number 1. And I said, am I this good? I never really thought about it. The next year I was runner-up in the U.S. Open and at Cherry Hills, and I said, I guess I can compete with these guys. And that's the first time I really started thinking about actually golf was going to be something I was going to make, a living at. I was in pre-pharmacy. My dad was a pharmacist. I was going to be a pharmacist behind a counter, and my dad said, "Jack, you don't want to be behind a counter." He says, "You can't use your golf game behind a counter." And I said, "Well, what do you suggest, Dad?" He says, "Well, let's get out and use something." So I switched over to Commerce College at Ohio State and became an insurance major. I sold insurance for a couple of years, and I said, "Yeah, this is not for me." And so anyway, I guess I ended up with golf is just sort of, it was last resort, you might say. Is that right?
Well, that's hard to believe, but I'm going to take you.
I'm kidding.
I'm going to take your word for it. How about, I know you play with Hogan there at Cherry Hills. Palmer won that event, and, Hogan had a rough, he hit the ball in the water on 17, didn't he, on the last day?
Yep, I think it's, I had a lead there, and I shot 39 in the last 9 holes. And Hogan was right with me. He was just a shot behind me going with about 3 or 4 holes to play. And then Hogan he played fantastic. He hit 34 greens in a row in regulation that day. We played 36 holes the last day. And he hit the previous 18 in the second round greens in a row. That's 52 greens in regulation in a row. And all of a sudden he hit this shot that hit just over the water and came back in the water on 17. And that virtually put him out of the tournament because he hooked it off the tee on 18 into the water and made triple bogey. But Arnold came by, and of course Arnold shot a great 65 the last round. And but I kid Arnold. I mean, and Arnold and I, of course, were great friends, and we needled each other as best we could every time we had an opportunity. And I told him, I said, AP, if I hadn't shot 39 that last 9 holes, nobody'd ever heard of you. And he said. And he said, yeah, and if I hadn't 3-putted 13 times at Oakmont, nobody ever heard of you either.
Good.
So anyway, we had a lot of fun through the years of kidding each other and so forth, and been great friends. But we miss him. He was a great guy.
Now I know you were sort of in between because Hogan loved you and never liked Palmer. Was that ever awkward for you?
I don't know whether that was actually the case or not. I think that. I don't know about the relationship with Palmer. I know that it was never warm and fuzzy, but I don't think it was ever adversarial. I think that when I played with Hogan in 1960 at the Cherry Hills, I was 20 years old, and he walked away from the event, and he said I played with a young man today that if he'd have known how to win, would have won this tournament by several strokes. And he might have been right. I didn't know how to win. That's why I shot 39 the last 9 holes and didn't win. But what the nicest compliment I got from Hogan was the next year at the Masters. I was in the locker room, and he walked in the locker room, had his shoes over his shoulder, and he walked in and he says, "Hey, fella." He called everybody fella. And he says, "Hey, fella, you got a game?" And here I'm a 21-year-old kid, and he wants to play golf with me.
How about that?
And so we went out and we played a couple rounds at the Masters, and he did the same thing at the U.S. Open that year. We played a couple practice rounds there. So I became, a good friend of Hogan's. We got along great, and I think he followed my career, and of course I admired his greatly.
It's funny. A lot of people tell you that, on the amateur level, 90% of these golf tournaments or big tennis matches, you don't win, the other guy loses. So don't do anything dumb, and your opponent will make a big mistake. You used to think that was the case, and a lot of times on the PGA Tour when you were up against players, correct? You thought, you know what, let's get a par here and let the other guy try to beat me, and a lot of times you win tournaments that way, correct?
Well, I always felt like you do the best you can. You play within yourself. Everybody's nervous. You're nervous. They're nervous. And as long as you don't do something stupid, more than likely somebody else is going to make a mistake. And that's generally speaking how you win tournaments. I lost a few tournaments that way too because they didn't make the mistakes and they just ended up playing better. And that's fair enough. You just stick out your hand and say congratulations. So, I suppose I was, you might say, a conservative player, but I don't really like to call it conservative. I like to think that I just played within myself and tried to play as smart as I could.
But you did know when you went to a major, Jack, that you had to keep your eye on about 3 or 4 players, right? When you went to a major.
Yeah, that's generally right. In my time, there was probably a half a dozen guys at the most that we'd have to watch out for, and if one of those other names were on the leaderboard or a couple of those names on the leaderboard, you knew that you were probably going to beat him down the end if you were smart. And today it's a little different. I mean, I am so excited about the game of golf today. We got so many good young players, the Jordan Spieths and the Justin Thomases and Jason Days and Ricky Fowler's, right on down the line. I mean, you could just name them one right after the other that are just terrific. They're all great young kids, and I think there are more good players in the game today than there's ever been in the game.
Interesting. We'll get to a little of that a little later. I heard your comments on Spieth at the British Open. I know you and Thomas are good friends. Did you ever? You love to win. You won the 18 majors. Did you? Is there a second place that you're almost as proud of compared to a first place? I know that sounds crazy. I'm thinking duel in the Sun, for instance. I'm thinking.
Chris, I think that's really crazy. I never had any time you finish second, you're a loser, and that doesn't mean you've lost or you're a bad player. But I mean, to me, I played, and number one is only where you want to be. Did I have a lot of good matches? I mean, you talked about the duel in the Sun with Watson in '77 at Turnberry, and we played great coming down the stretch. And Tom just played better than I did the last couple of holes, and I've had some. I play off with Trevino at Marion, and I had Watson came down at. Watson got me a couple times. He got me at the Masters in '77. He got me. We chipped in at the U.S. Open in '82.
Beach. Yes, yeah.
And so there's a lot of things the guys that got me, but I got them too. But there's a lot of seconds that I look back on and I said, I had an opportunity and. Somebody just did something better than I did. I only got a couple of them early in my career, which was the 39 at Cherry Hills that I shot the last 9, or I bogeyed the last 2 holes at Lytham at 63 to lose by a shot. Those are the only 2 times that I can think of that I really was stupid, and that's what I learned from. That's, I think the worst thing could have ever happened to me is to win the U.S. Open in 1960. I think I'd have been my arms wouldn't have been long enough to scratch my ears.
That's a good point.
And so. And so you put your head back on your shoulders and you learn from it, and I think it's a good lesson to learn. You got to lose. You got to lose. You got to learn how to lose before you can really learn how to win.
Yeah, those 2 that Jack brings up, I hadn't heard him say that, the 63 and the 60, but still, Jack, the 19 seconds and the 18 first, that's 37 majors that you're right there, a couple of holes to go, and in order to win a lot of these, you got to put yourself on a hunt. So 30, and there's probably a lot of top 5 finishes that I'm not even aware of that probably you should have maybe won that tournament too. But think about it. You, in 37 majors, finished 1 or 2. Now, and you won 50% of them. I mean, that is a. Yeah. I mean, if Federer. I know you love tennis as I do. Federer has won 19 majors now. Oh, is it 18? I forget it. Whatever it is.
19.
19. He's won. Jack knows, and I don't. 19 majors, but he's lost 10 or 11 in finals. He's lost a few to Djokovic or semifinals, but he's given himself a chance, and that is what you did for a long career. You got to give yourself an opportunity to win before you can win. How about that for a sec?
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I'm a big fan of Roger Federer's, and I think he's fantastic. What a great year he had this year.
Oh, he sure did.
The way he played. I mean, I was so happy for him. And here you're saying, well, he's way beyond his time. I don't think Rogers thinks he's beyond his time. I think he's doing pretty well.
You had a couple of tragedies in your life, Jack, and you handled it well, which the Golf Channel talked about that when your friends came down to see you play at the Masters, and they had that plane crash, and your dad, too. You said goodbye to him when he went for a surgery. He was happy-go-lucky, and you never got a chance to see him again. Give me a little sense of what those 2 things did for your perspective on sports and sort of putting it in its proper place. Let me hear those. Go ahead.
Well, 1966, a close friend of mine, Bob Barton, and his wife, and two friends of theirs, Jim and Dredd Long, were coming to the Masters, and Bob and I, we spent a lot of golf together, and actually the fall previous to that, we'd gone duck hunting in that same airplane that he flew down to the Masters in, and he iced up over the mountains and crashed on Wednesday night coming into trying to come to Augusta. He crashed in Bristol, Tennessee, and I didn't want to play. I was one of the things, but Bob would have wanted me to play, so everybody talked me into playing, and I ended up winning the golf tournament. But that was a tough week, and that actually I sat down and reflected that week, and we talked about how great the Masters was, and what kind of things were going to, legacies going to come out of that. And actually, that's where we actually created Muirfield Village, and the Memorial Tournament was sitting down that night and talking about it in 1966. And then, of course, my father passed away. He passed away. He had pancreatic cancer in 1970, and I hadn't won a major since '67. I hadn't won '68, '69, and all of a sudden I looked back at what I had done, and I said, my dad lived for me, and I don't think I gave him a fair shake. I don't think I worked as hard as I could have in '68 or '9. I won tournaments, but I didn't win any majors, and so I tried to rededicate myself. Went back to the game and harder in 1970, and I won at St. Andrews. And my dad would have been proud of that, but he was passed away at age 56, far too young, and it's you missed your best friend, that's for sure.
You're putting, Jack. We all know how well you hit a ball, how cleanly you hit a ball, but you were such a tremendous putter. I don't remember now. Listen, I didn't see you in the '60s. I can't. Maybe I missed a tournament where you didn't putt as well as you could have. I don't know. I didn't see every one of your majors, but I never remember you many times. Three putting. We've seen Scott Hoke. We've seen Tom Weiskopf. You saw it in your own eyes. We've seen Norman. We've seen the big golfer miss the huge putt in a major. And we never saw it. I can't recall. I never seen it on a highlight. I don't recall many times in my life where I've gone back and looked at old films to see Jack miss a 3-footer that would have created a playoff or would have won a PGA. Well, your putting was so. You talk about your putting for a second. I'm interested. Go ahead.
I'll go back to about 1965 or 6, somewhere in that area. Around, I was playing at Pebble Beach in the Crosby tournament, and was coming down the stretch. And the 18th hole at Pebble, I needed 4 to win, 5 to tie. It's par 5. And I had 3 shots on the green about 20 feet behind the hole, and Phil Rogers was already in the clubhouse. So I needed to make this putt to win or, 2 putt to go to a playoff. Now, I sit there, and why I did it, I don't know, but I rammed the putt, ran it 4.5 feet by the hole, missed it coming back, and lost the playoff through stupidity. Or lost the tournament through stupidity by trying to win it on a low percentage putt. Well, I vowed to myself that I would never put myself in that position again, and I never 3-putted the 18th green again in a tournament.
Wow!
And so, where I had any chance with anything happening.
Right.
And that was the kind of thing that I did, and so I prided myself on making sure that I put myself in that position because I never wanted to see that happen again. And sometimes, it probably is going to happen again sometime, but I never let it.
Did you ever win a major where you didn't feel like you deserved it? I know you won that when Doug Ford had that terrible scenario there at the British Open. Did you ever?
Doug Sanders.
Doug Sanders. I'm sorry, Jack. That's terrible.
That's right.
And you threw the golf club, and that was. Was there ever a major where you thought, "Geez, boy, did I get a lucky break here that this so and so did that, and I shouldn't have won, but I did anyway"? Was there ever one of those for you?
That was probably one. That would have been 19. That was 19. Let's see, what was that? 70. And Doug missed about a 2-foot putt at the last hole. It was a very sharp breaking putt to the right. He missed it, and then I beat him in the playoff. And let's see, I don't know. I imagine there's a couple other ones that I probably got a break on. I mean, as you said earlier, you don't always win when you're on. I don't know what you said, but you never win necessarily when you're on the top of your game. Sometimes you don't play your best and you still win.
Right.
And sometimes you play your best and you get beat. But for the most part, I think that balanced out on me. I got beat a few times coming down the stretch for somebody did something spectacular.
Well, like Watson.
And I probably early in my career I booted a couple of them away, but and I'm sure there's probably somewhere along the line that somebody else booted it away too. But that's that's sort of what happens.
Everybody talks about the '86 Masters. I know one of your favorites is the '75 Masters with you, Weiskopf, and Johnny Miller coming. And I have Johnny Miller on here a lot. And Johnny Miller, that's the one he regrets the most because he can't ever go back to the Masters on an every-year basis to play because obviously, you have to be a defending champ. And so that one he always rues the most, 75. I know that's one of your favorites. Give me a little rundown on that for a sec. Go ahead.
Well, 75 Masters is one that, generally speaking, somebody folds. And in 75 Masters, Weiskopf was playing great. I was playing well, and Johnny Miller, who didn't start off well, really had two great last rounds. And excuse me, so coming down the stretch, it was birdie, 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 birdie. Everybody was doing the right thing coming down there, and it was probably win or lose. Even if I lost it, I would still say it was probably the most exciting golf tournament I ever played in.
Wow!
And what happened is that I ended up with a one-shot lead coming to the last hole, and I'd hold a big long putt on 16 while they were on the 15th green to put me a shot ahead. I think we all parred 17, and I don't maybe Miller may even birdied 17 to get into a shot. Anyway, I parred 18, and they both hit in really nice shots. Miller hit it about 18 feet behind the hole, and Weiskopf hit it about 8 feet behind the hole. Johnny's putt, he missed on the low side, and Weiskopf had this putt down the hill, and he just played a little bit too much break, and the ball didn't break, and the tournament was over. But what a great finish! What a great tournament! Everybody played well. It was one of the great events I've ever been involved in.
Wow, how about that? How about the pickup hoops, Jack? I know you played a lot of pickup hoops there on Monday afternoons or Mondays after tournaments. You ever afraid of, you do that today, people go crazy. Boy, you can't get injured, you can't get hurt. But I can tell basketball's in your blood. You played it even when you were had kids and you were finishing a tournament. You came home and played some pickup basketball, right?
Well, I played in a rec league in Florida here from the time that I've been down here in Florida till I come home every Monday and play. And the guys I was on the team with, and they look over the guys that started the game and says, "You take him out under the bucket." He says, "You've got us to see afterwards." So I stopped going. I made my living playing basketball, going to the basket and the foul line.
Right.
And so finally I said, I don't want these guys to get this. So I start becoming worthless. I start shooting from the outside, and then I wouldn't, that sort of ended. But I played basketball in a rec league till I was 40.
Until you're 40, and never worried about injury, huh, Jack?
Well, so what?
Twisting an ankle,
practiced football with the kids and kicked footballs and threw and played in, kind of all that kind of stuff and basketball. And I coached little league baseball and pitched. I was a pitcher a lot and doing that for the batting practice and. I skied. I did all those other things. I didn't worry about it. I mean, to me, you live your life. I mean, that was I was not a gym rat. I was not a guy to go to the gym, and I was not a guy. I ran a little bit, but I was not a guy to go do all that stuff. I got my physical exercise and balanced my body by playing other sports. And that's how I felt I kept myself in condition.
Did you take in the peak of your career, having all the kids, and you had a lot of kids, and you just I know you did the little league and all the thing. Did you take 2 months off? I mean, did you make sure you went to a driving range, 3 times a week, even when you were in sort of a little break? How did you handle that as far as your regimen was concerned regarding golf?
Well, golf to me was I always sort of go through my year a little bit for you. I mean, I'd start at the beginning of the year. I would generally take the falls off because we didn't have a silly season back in those days.
Yeah, this season today is stupid. I totally agree.
Yeah, they play all year now right now. I think it's too much. Anyway, we'd start off in January, and I'd start sitting balls a couple of weeks before the first tournament, and I'd hit a lot of balls to try to get some mileage under my swing, and then I'd get my game going, and then I would practice basically to maintain. But what I would also, but then you had to do it mentally. So what I would do is I try to build myself up for any kind of a significant event. And then as soon as that event was over, I'd build myself all spring for the Masters. As soon as the Masters was over, I'd take a week off, and I'd let everything fall because I wanted to be able to climb the mountain and then go down the other side. And then I want to get myself in a position where I build myself back up for the U.S. Open. And I do the same thing after the U.S. Open, the Masters, or the British Open, then the PGA. And I always felt like I wanted to be just as fresh at the end of the season as I was at the beginning of the season. I wanted to be rested. I wanted to be keen and I wanted to be really wanting to play. I didn't want to be stale.
Right. Stay motivated.
That's what I did. And then when I got to the fall, generally speaking, we finished up. By the middle of September, and then I didn't touch a golf club. I might have played, I played an odd exhibition, or maybe I might have picked up some. I might have gone to Australia or something and played a tournament. But I played maybe an odd week or two in the fall, and then started that back up in January after a good rest. And I was not only fresh with my body, but I was fresh with my mind.
You were hungry, yeah. You have two great ideas, and I play golf. No, I'm like a 16, but I love to play. No, I have 4 kids.
We're about even now.
No, I don't think so. But you have
two. Everybody. I always tell people now. Everybody always wanted to play like I do. Now they can.
Yeah, why not? But you have 2 themes that I like a lot that I always tell people. And, a guy like Chris Russo, he goes play Shinnecock if he's fortunate. I got to play the whole golf course, and I can't do that. And the 2 things that you've always said is interesting. Play the tee box that is commensurate with your game. And number 2, shorten golf to 12 holes. You get more kids involved.
You want to make the game. We have basically 3 problems today with the game of golf. And golf is getting, it's a little old, and and we really need to freshen it up. And what I mean by that is, I think the game of golf is great, but from the average person, it takes too long. You don't have 4.5 hours to go play golf anymore. It's too difficult, and it's too expensive. So all those things, if we played shorter golf courses, less holes, less time, less money, a lot more people would play with others. We really the whole objective is to get people in the game and keep them in the game.
Right.
And that's what we want to do. We don't want people to say, "Oh gosh, I can't spend 4 hours and a half out here today. I got to leave early in the morning and come late in the night." I mean, the wife says to me, she says, "You're not leaving today. This is Saturday. You got work to do." I said, "Well, honey, I'm going to go leave at 8 o'clock and I'll be home before noon." She said, "Okay, that's fine." Well, if you did that, you could play your 12 holes. You could play a quick round of golf, or and it wouldn't cost you a fortune, and so you'd try to play a golf course that was a little easier too.
How about
all those things fall into that category?
How about the tee box? You're right. Why do so many amateur players, Jack, have to start at the back of the bus? Why can't people? Why are they afraid to play the white tees, for crying out loud? How about that?
I think our golfers are the biggest masochists that ever lived.
Yeah, they are.
They want to punish themselves. That's what we do.
Now, I know you're doing a lot of course design, and I know you're doing a lot. Is it true that you've always said that your favorite second shot in golf is the shot at Pebble Beach on 8? Is that correct?
That is correct. I always thought that was it's a very, very ordinary, mundane tee shot, and then all of a sudden you come up over to the top of this hill and you look out over this big bay that comes in, and the green sits out there. It's fantastic. I think it's just every time I go there, I just get excited.
All right, now you've played your whole life, and I don't know how much you play now. Is there still a course, if you do play around the United States, or even in Europe or Scotland or in Ireland, that you say to yourself, "Wow, you still get a little goosebumps to go play it"? Is there still a course? Which one is it? Which one is that?
Well, I had. Jim Nance had a day for Alzheimer's in June, and he said, "Jack, I want you to come out, and you can have a what do you call it, your day that you want?"
You could be honored. You could be.
No, I know. Like, what was the movie about you? I'm blank.
That's okay.
Anyway. He said, "Why don't you come out and bring your boys, and I'll organize for you to be able to play Cypress and Pebble Beach, and my bucket list." And so my bucket list to come out, and in June I went out there with my 4 boys. We played Pebble Beach, or we played Cypress Point one day and Pebble Beach the next day. Fantastic.
Wow.
That would be something that to me was just that was a real bucket list day.
Wow.
And so. And so if I had places to go play, I'd go to Cypress or Pebble. Every time I go to Augusta, even though I can't play it anymore, I look back and the back tees are 100 yards behind me anymore. but I still love it. I still love going there. I haven't been back to St. Andrews since I retired in 2005. But do I love St. Andrews? Absolutely. I love St. I think just what a great place. You go to this gray old town, and all of a sudden. You walk out. There's the old course. There's the clubhouse, and this town lights up like like you're in downtown Manhattan or something, Times Square or something. I mean, that's what it does in my own mind, and it's just I got a few places like that around the world that happens to me, and I just I love it. I don't play much golf anymore, Chris. I play I don't know. I maybe play once, maybe twice a month. That's about what I might play.
Well, I mean, when you win 19 majors, you're allowed. When you design a golf course, Jack, what is your main objective?
Well, my objective is to design a golf course for who's going to play it, and for the owner, and to be able to create an amenity for his, for his facility. In other words, if my goal is to go out and create a golf course for a public facility that's going to get people to play it in 3.5 hours or 4 hours, whatever it might be, and they can enjoy it and have fun and so forth and so on, that's never going to make the top 10 courses in the country. But if it accomplishes what he wants it for, then that's a good golf course. And if I do a golf course like I went out and did Castle Pines for Jack Vickers. Jack Vickers wanted to have, a significant event. He wanted to have the tournament. He ended up having the international tournament out there. And, I accomplished a course for what he wanted. He had his good membership. He had a sort of an exclusive club. That's what he wanted. So that's my goal, is to create not what I want, but what the owner wants.
Do you create a golf course thinking for the 15 handicap, or do you create a golf course for? Well, I guess it depends on which one you do for the 2 handicap, for the scratch golfer. How do you handle that?
You try to do it for everybody. In other words, that's what you do. You try to create. That's where the tees come into, and you create a golf course where not only do you create exciting shots which might be over water or something, but you also create an alternate way to play the hole, so that the average golfer can play it too.
Interesting.
And that's the most important thing, is to get to a golf course that everybody who wants to play it can enjoy it, have fun, and be challenged.
Yeah, that's Jack. We'll wrap up with Jack Nicklaus here in a second. He's doing a tremendous job as we continue here. Now, tell me about this Nicklaus design, Nicklaus Companies. Are you still active with this? I mean, listen, if you want to sit back and be retired, no problem. But it sounds like you're still pretty peppy. I know you go to Wimbledon every year. I know you said great things about Spieth. I want to end on that. But I know you still do a lot with the design here. For me, you got lots of projects going on as we speak. How's it working right now for you on an everyday basis?
Well, I think the golf course design business is pretty slow right now. We've got theoretically under contract probably 20 or 25 golf courses, but actively working, I'm working on probably, 7 or 8 of them right now, and the others are sort of just, piddling along. But I get a tremendous thrill out of going out and taking a piece of ground and turning it into something that can be used by a lot of people that'll be here long beyond my lifetime, and and my golf game in my lifetime. But that's fun, and creativity is fun for me. Do we have a lot of other things? Yeah, I've got a lot of things we're doing, but those are all things that are part of our marketing and commercials. I'm not going to bother you with that, but they're fun. I love working with people and trying to create things, whether it's a golf course or whether might be tumblers or coolers or ice cream or what have you. It's things that people that really want to create something, and if I can contribute and be part of it,
makes you happy
and make it a better experience for them. That's what I like to do.
Makes you happy. One last thing, Spieth. I know you said things there about his British Open, those last 5 holes. I read some quotes from you that was some of the most magnificent mental capacity golf you've ever seen on that Sunday there when he hit the ball on a driving range and somehow finished the way he finished to win the British Open at Birkdale. Let me hear some thoughts on that for a sec. Go ahead.
Well, I don't think I would have ever dreamed of going back to where he was. I would still be there trying to chop the ball out of that hillside. He hit it so far offline that he really needed, if he had chopped at it, he'd have taken 3 more shots to get it back to the fairway. But he had the presence of mind to go back and find a driving range and play from there, and ended up making, bogey on the hole, I guess.
Yeah, made a putt for bogey, correct, yes.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. And then he almost makes hole-in-one at the next hole. He holds a big, long putt for eagle at the next hole, holds a birdie at the next hole, holds a birdie at the next hole, and finishes winning the tournament. Unbelievable finish. I mean, I have the greatest respect for Jordan Spieth, and what a nice kid. I mean, he's a terrific kid. I think Jordan Spieth is only going to get better. He's got an unbelievable short game. I think he doesn't hit the ball quite as straight as I think he probably should hit the ball, but he'll learn to do that. I mean, he's got a couple little things in his swing he can fix, and they're not going to be a big deal. But he'll do that. But he is only going to get better. I mean, good gracious, the kid's 23, maybe 24 years old, and what he's done already has been fantastic. And what he's going to do in the future is going to be even better.
Well, you don't want your record broken, do you, Jack? Yeah. I can't. You're a competitive guy. You couldn't have wanted Tiger. He got to 14. You wanted him to stop there, right? You don't want Spieth to. You don't want Spieth to get to 19, do you, Jack?
I don't really care. I mean, I told Tiger. I've talked to Tiger a lot, and Tiger. Just going to come out. Talk to Tiger. I said, Tiger. I said, nobody wants their records to be broken, but I said, I don't want you not being able to play and not being able to be there to compete to try to do it. And if you can do it, I want to be the first one there to shake your hand. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Tiger, whether Tiger will be able to come back or not. That's a long shot. But you got Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, you've got
Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, Dustin Johnson. You've got these guys that are all terrific players. They're all starting to win. Roy McIlroy. They're starting to win majors, and they're guys that have the potential to win 19 majors. Whether they will or not, I don't know. But what I like about it is that I have a relationship with all of them. I see them a lot. A lot of them are members of the Bears Club, which is my course here in Florida.
Right.
And they come to me and we talk a lot. And for a 77-year-old to be talking with a 23-year-old and have the 23-year-old's attention is pretty good, let alone have him listen to you. And so, I'm having a ball. I enjoy it. I love being with these kids. I love what I really like about these kids. All root for each other. They like each other. They love playing with each other. They love to compete. They know there's plenty of wins out there for all of them. They all want each other. They all want each other to succeed. I tell you, that's a great position to see the game of golf in today. The game of golf is really in good hands.
I can't give you an autographed picture with Satchel Paige and DiMaggio from 1948, but I can give you my I can give you my thanks, Jack. I really enjoyed it. Keep up the good work. Appreciate you coming on here this afternoon.
Okay, it's my pleasure. Nice
Okay,
talking to you.
You got it, Jack Nicklaus. There you go.
That was great.
That was a good spot, huh?